Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. Today we'll be picking up on our proof and our discussion of science, deriving our next axiom. So again, obviously this is believe this is part 81. So if you've not seen the other ones, this is going to pick up right where the last one left off. Our topics today, we'll discuss some leftover thoughts from last episode. We will be discussing more again about our iteration function, just how sounds iterate and how they are represented by letters. Any poignant things we can say about that with our goal and our hopes to differentiate sensorality into sensor with a C and sensor with an S. Everybody knows what censorship is, so we've generalized that into sensorality. We're going to explore that word family. But again, trying to differentiate sensorality, sensorality, define that uniquely one way. We discussed at length that the sound E at the end of a sequence of sound keeps that word open. In the same way, there are no closed systems. All physical objects have a temperature, that is, they're radiating they're emitting radiation. All words or all logic has open, it's all open, so it can be built upon for future events. There's always going to be tomorrow, the future's always going to come with new situations, new verbiage, new words, new sequences of logic, and new terminology. So the words must be open so they can be built upon, like Legos. What else are we going to discuss? We will again discuss more of the functions, or more of the facets of the iteration function, discuss more about syllability. We'll talk about basis and range, touch a little bit on mathematics, formal mathematics, but this will be mostly structured around language, and then we'll switch over to mostly structured physics and how rhythm and vibration applied to what's already known in physics, because again, we're developing a proof, we're establishing an axiom. The proof of that axiom will make the logic and explanations of physical phenomenon more robust. It's not negating anything in physics, it's adding things to physics. That's what a proof is, that's what progress is. You take everything that's known before and you provide more insight and you move it forward. So we've discussed a lot of ideas just again of how, is there some sort of attempt at symmetry within constructing a single word? How do those things, do they build out radially from a single vowel, like there's a center point, and then we build words out, or we add letters in and build them out, between, again, bounded by that general Y, which is open, again, not including a boundary condition to represent the sound E for the most general form of any word, and then can we say anything about the beginning of any word? But again, in physics and reality, it's just iterations of sound. What rules and relations can we establish empirically? So we'll be discussing that, and then the actual physics discussion will be about how rhythm applies to electricity, or vibration and rhythm apply to electricity, showing consistency with things that are already known and providing further insight. So the first thing that I wanted to do, since the goal is to prove the axiom of sensorality, I just wanted to start by reading, since again my proof is empirical, I started with just empirical evidence, experience, and things that could not be denied by any reasonable person. So I'm going to read the universal boundary conditions. Those are the physical conditions of physical realities that are empirically true, and then the axioms that have already been established. So starting with the boundary conditions, the speed of light is the unattainable upper limit to how fast mass-containing systems can move through space. Again, well established by Albert Einstein, just light stabilized into mass, so there's no ability for mass to move as fast as light, and now we're not viewing light as moving really at all, but just the medium for information transfer through vibration. The uncertainty principle is the precision limit, a lower bound for simultaneous measurement of dimensional components. However, we want to characterize dimensions: forward, backwards, up, down, left, right, whatever language you want to do, whatever symbols you want to use. That's the empirical realities. We're in 3 dimensions. The minimum bound, again, approaching the Planck length. But regardless, even if we had access to higher energy levels, the Planck that could probe lower or more precise than the Planck length, there's still some fundamental minimum bound that we've proven through practicality, just that the structure of any given object scales regardless of size. But there's a fundamental lower bound. We discussed that extensively last video. The photoelectric effect establishes the direct interaction of mass-containing systems and light as a function of frequency. Again, the photoelectric effect, you have something vibrating at a given frequency and it excites an electron to a different orbital. Again, just showing the infinitesimal interaction between light or between vibration and mass-containing systems. Vibration stabilizes into light, light stabilizes into mass, mass and light have direct interaction with one another, vibration and mass have infinitesimal interaction with one another, the photoelectric effect. And those were all proven before me. But again, I re-derived all of these things myself. Or again, these are the boundary conditions. And then the fourth one, absolute zero is physically unattainable as an extension of the third law of thermodynamics. PV equals nRT. Pressure times volume equals the number of moles. R is just a constant depending what units you're referring to, and T is the temperature. Where any pressuritic information exchange is a force applied to a surface area. Any pressure applied results in a non-zero systemic temperature, the measurability condition. This is a direct extension of the generalization of Newton's laws to a continuous pressure gradient in R3. Simply put, everything's connected but nothing is touching. And because you're always touching something, you always have something applying a pressure to you, simply based off PV equals nRT. If there's a pressure, there has to be a non-zero. If there's a non-zero pressure, there's a non-zero temperature. Simple as that. And so the new axiom that I proved again back in 2000, solidified the proof, probably 2018-ish, somewhere in there. Again, I don't even really remember because it's not that big of a deal to me. But those are the demonstrable empirical physical things that are already understood by physics, and then we go on to the axioms to prove speciality. And so the axioms, the prime numbers are the most relevant number field, the proper subset of the natural numbers. Again, numbers don't exist. We've done extensive things in terms of number theory, but numbers are not empirical. They're representations of quantity, and then we show relationships between those quantities, functions. We group different objects, sets. We use classes, which are also sets. The prime numbers represent the number of unique dimensions of physical interaction in which matter can move. That is, or for example, R3 has 3 dimensions. Again, just dimensionality, a unitless number that represents the quantity of a set. But 3 pairs of 2, forward, backwards, left, right, up, down. There's 3 different things. Again, we've proven there's only 3 in numerics. There's only 3 prime numbers, 3, 5, and 7, proven by our 3 iterations of the shadow on the wall. 3 is the beginning, 5 is the middle point, 7 is the bound, but there's just 3 elements. There's just 3, and that's why there's, through all traditions, math, physics, science, pseudoscience, theology, metallurgy, whatever, there's the power of 3. That's why that kind of exists. But we've gone over that, but those are more towards mathematics. But it is physical as well. Again, it all kind of blends together. Measurable physical systems are interacting through a continuous pressure gradient in R3. Again, everything is connected, nothing is touching. Physical systems seek maximally efficient exchange of momentum in time, that is rhythmic motion. 5, the fundamental theorem of linguistics asserts language converges to minimalistic expressions of well-defined processes of the natural world. Again, I prove that as well, or I axiomatized, so I guess this is my 3rd axiom. But that one's, again, empirically evident at face value. At every discipline, every specialty job has a lingo. Again, we talked about gunshot wound for police, GSW, or 86 for kitchen staff. If you're a waiter and you're 86, you're out of a certain menu item. Everyone has these different abbreviations, so that's, again, overwhelmingly empirically obvious. but now we're assessing the entirety of language, not just a given lingo or a given slang word, but how is language evolving over the large scale. And then we have the final one this is the one that I proved in real time, which has been documented as many steps as I can document since 2000. After 2018, organisms maximize speciality, the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. Whether you want more money to have to be able to provide a stable or luxurious life, whether you're a good listener, whether you like the color red, whether you're a sports fan, whether you're into this religion or into this political party or into this culture or to this country. These are all different things that make people want to form a sense of identity. And so you're a person, and I'll go through the entirety of my paper again, but I'm re-deriving it again, right? So that's why I haven't referenced my paper really at all directly until now, is because I haven't needed to. I mean, I'm redoing the entire thing. I've done this process multiple times. And so, again, that's, at this point, that should be the dynamic of that axiom should be very apparent. People want to differentiate themselves. I don't think anyone would deny that whatsoever. Especially not in a fundamental biological sense. You want to be different so you can spread your genes, and so you're going to pursue whatever differentiation makes you more attractive as a mate. So that's speciality. So all I did was show the extension of the word special, which everyone used before my proof, to the word speciality, which is just special with ILTY or ITY at the end. And so, and just the iteration of the vowels changed the pronunciation. Like last time we went over nouns and verbs being differentiated by inflection. Same thing going on there. Right, special to speciality, special. And now, so we can skip. I'll go over the other parts of my proof, but they're more tailored to really showing the academic frontier. Here's exactly where theory goes, and here's exactly how, again, I called my theory VIT, but really it's just a demonstrable proof. Like, I like the word proof way better than theory a million times over. Because I say, here's a fact, here's a fact, here's a fact, and here's another fact because of it, and here's simply the words we use to describe it. That includes the word theory. I mean theory, theoretic, rhythmic, and all of these words are connected, and how they've differentiated, and how we can consolidate them and draw new insight. And so, skipping all of the bulk of my paper in that sense, the relevant part, I just have I have my papers in 5 parts, 42 pages, does all the rigorous mathematics. But the last section of my paper, or one of the last sections, it's just direct unification of natural selection and general relativity with speciality. And I'll just read it for you. The abstract of this paper asserted I would provide direct logical unity between general relativity and Darwinian natural selection. Vibrational information theory asserts that constructions of language are minimalistic. Einstein presented one theory, general relativity, with a unique case, special relativity. Darwinian natural selection is detailed in the origin of species. A species consists of individual organisms which can reproduce with one another. Speciality is the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. The word family of species is explicitly expressed below. Species, special, specialty, speciality. And so now we're trying to get sensorality, probably, most likely that 4th iteration, the species, special, but again, naturally pronounced, it'd be species, special, specialty. But right, we don't have a definition for specialty, but then speciality would be the pronunciation of the word well defined into an axiom. So now we're probably going to show iteration of specialty with sensorty or sensor or consensus or something, right? So that's what I'm trying to do, is iterate that logic to say exactly what's the next form of the next axiom after sensorality. But since all words are connected, we already know that, we've already proven that, we're going to have a one-way unique logical statement containing iterating both speciality and sensorality. It's going to have to be one continuous word, and again, into one continuous sentence. And we'll be able to show that iteration. I already have identified the form is probably going to be conscientiousness, with the C coming from sensorality with a C, and she-anxiousness, the S coming from speciality. But again, it will be one direct iteration of the of both logical ideas represented by the word speciality and sensorality. And so, but then I just have, now Google the word speciality, and Google it still right now. It's not defined. There was no definition for it, but we just defined it, and we proved why that is the definition empirically, because we used the word special. The fact that it does not exist in scientific literature or any diction is already naturally defined, as precisely what VIT predicts, as it is a theory of language. It is the theory. It's not a theory, it's just how language evolves. We've demonstrated it as a proof. People act special when they want attention. This is already the exclusive use of the word special. So literally, origin of species, Darwin, special relativity, it's the iteration of sound from species to special. And so now we're trying to do that with sensorality. So I just wanted to read to you the axioms and the conclusion of my paper, because that's what we're iterating, which was an iteration of basically, again, not all of scientific literature, but the bare minimum needed to logically make the next step, which is still a lot. But now, yeah, so this will definitely be 2 parts. That'll be enough for. So the electricity part will be another. I'll probably record it today or like continuously with this episode, but it'll definitely be edited to a different episode. Also, in the previous episode, I have one other fundamental alliteration I've been getting a lot. So what I do is I just do my derivations in the morning, then record in the afternoon, or do a period of deriving, and then I just record after that. And so I've been getting a bunch of those fundamental alliterations, but I just have emotion equilibrates. Sensorality with an S will be going towards emotionality. Anything that has the potential for emotion is sensorious. And sensorality with a C does not have emotion. My notepad does not have an emotion. My shorts do not have an emotion. The pool table does not have an emotion. But I've been running into a lot of alliterations. We'll discuss concavity. That came up linguistically, but we need to discuss that in physics. I stuttered over direct objects. I said something about hitting a baseball. Brad hits the baseball. Brad is the subject. Brad is a noun. Brad is a proper noun. You say he hits the baseball. He is a pronoun. Generalizing Brad. So he hits the ball. Hit is the verb. The ball is the direct object. It is receiving the object or the action of the verb. Indirect objects, I think we've proven those don't exist, or they're not a unique function of language. We discussed those a while back. I've heard the exact proof or logic around that. But I've misspoke in the last one there. I kind of corrected it in the editing, but I don't really edit much. But linguistically, we can say again, light stabilizes or vibration stabilized into light stabilized into mass. So we can say mass emerged from light and light emerged from vibration, getting emergency into the lexicon, into the vernacular, into the vocabulary, into the ontology. Emergency, if you just said it right now, people would think, oh, I gotta go hurry and do something. But emergency as in manifestation coming forth. And realization is emergent, both physically, right? Mass emerged from light, and so, like, it literally stabilized. That's why mass has a relation to energy through Einstein's E = mc squared. So, another interesting thing. I don't know what to make of it in terms of a definitive statement, but in the last episode, I asserted that. When you end a word with somebody, a person, a human being, an individual doing something, you typically end it with an ER, and if it's an inanimate object doing a function, you end it with an OR. So I just wanted to list how many I could find, or just off the top of my head think. So I just have 4 quadrants. It'll be up on the screen, but you see for the OR, with not people. This is my assertion. I asserted that there would be more words ending in ER that reference people than OR. So things that ended in OR that don't reference people that I could think of, again, just real quickly, was capacitor, resistor, numerator, denominator. But here's another one. Again, it's probably going to sound funny, but it's empirically true. How about a vibrator, right? If vibrational information theory was real, it would predict something called a vibrator. I'm pretty sure we know what those are. Or at least that one chick does that. It plays in the WNBA. They keep throwing dildos on there. But in all seriousness, vibrator is, like, again, the form of the existence of that word to a unique object that has a unique function, or at least designed for a unique function, has a word for it. And so, and then censor with a C, C-E-N-S-O-R. That sounds like censorship. And then, right, that's a word people always use right now today, but they spell it with a C. But I'm saying censorship, when you have a sentient being making a choice to do something, that's censorship with an S. A physical object rerouting a signal or redirecting another physical object, that's censoring with a C. But then for words that ended with ER that referenced people, a bunch more: founder, landscaper, plumber, baker, dealer, teller, like a bank teller, builder, owner, driver. And then I kind of like ones that are like kind of like on the middle. Because how about cleaner? If I just said the word cleaner, or I have a cleaner, would you think I have like a cleaning agent, like a bar of soap, which is you could call a cleaner with an ER, or a cleaner like a housemaid or a house cleaner? So those are ones where it's like, there's some where it's like very clearly they're referencing a person, but then there's other ones where it's like you're not sure if it's a person or an inanimate object. For with things that ended in or that referenced people, which would have been the converse argument to what I asserted, you have orator, you have realtor, you have actor, you have assessor, like a land assessor, you have a proprietor, and then you have a censor with an S, a censor referencing a person. Ending in ER not referencing people, a dispenser, a cleanser, a washer. And again, I couldn't really think of many of them, but again, these are just things that came up in my derivation or just came to mind. But it seems what I asserted is true. Again, obviously not rigorously proven, but overall, it's clear that there's some sort of iteration of animacy, things that have life, individuals, people, sensuality, and how that is iterating through the language. So there's, again, it's just, there's the evidence. What can we make of that logically? But again, saying that we are going to have to use the word speciality and sensuality, or form of those words, in a single sentence, or combine them into one word, and show that iteration. I just think it's going to be sentience, consciousness, conscientiousness. It's going to be something of those three words. And again, with the C and the S coming from speciality and one from sensuality, and then the lot of suffix, the ishness. But what physical reasons causes pronunciation of the last syllable first correct? Again, take a word, a language where you know the word, but you might not be certain on the pronunciation, but you know the alphabet, and then you take the last syllable and you pronounce that one first, and then you work backwards to the front of the word, and you'll derive the correct pronunciation. Why does that exist? What do we make of that?